Welcome back to UA Piping Industry College of BC. We are in the Conecctions lab where we will be continuing our Backflow Preventor testing. First, what we will do is notify the customer that we will be turning the water off during the test. Next, we will identify the Backflow Preventer. Today we will be testing the double check valve assembly. After identifying, we will inspect and observe the Backflow Preventer for any visible leaks. We have 4 properly located test cocks, 2 shutoff valves, and 2 check valves. We will also ensure that there are no cross connections downstream and that there is acceptable clearance around the assembly. To set up for test 1, we will flush test cocks, starting with test cock number 1, test cock number 2, test cock number 3, and test cock number 4. Attach the vertical tube to test cock 3. And the bleed off arrangement to test cock 2. We are going to be using the TK99E differential gauge with a 5-valve configuration. Ensure all the control valves are closed and the bleed valves are closed. We can remove any unused hoses, so disconnect your low pressure hose as well as the bypass hose. You will connect the high side hose to test cock number 2. In this case, we're going to connect it to the bleed off arrangement. Open test cock number 2 and bleed out air by opening the high side bleed valve. Once all the air is purged, close the high side bleed valve. Open test cock number 3 to fill the vertical tube. Fill it until you have a meniscus on top, and then close test cock number 3. Hold the differential pressure gauge centered to the top of the tube. Close shutoff valve number 2, followed by shutoff valve number 1. For test 1, we will be testing that check valve number 1 is closed tight in the direction of flow of 1 psid or greater. Open test cock number 3 to relieve pressure downstream of check valve number 1. Wait for gauge to stabilize and water has stopped flowing from the vertical tube. Observe and record the pressure drop across check valve 1. Close test cocks and remove differential gauge. Open shutoff valve number 1 only. To set up for test 2, transfer the vertical tube to test cock 4. And bleed off arrangement to test cock number 3. Open test cock number 3 and bleed out any air by opening the high side bleed valve. Once the air is purged, shut off the high side bleed valve. Open test cock number 4 to fill the vertical tube until you have a meniscus. Hold differential pressure gauge center to the top of the vertical tube. Close shutoff valve number 1. For test 2, we will be testing that check valve number 2 is closed tight in the direction of flow of 1 psid or greater. Open test cock number 4 to relieve the pressure on the downstream side of check valve number 2. Wait for gauge to stabilize and water has stopped flowing from the vertical tube. Observe and record your readings. Close test cocks and remove equipment. For test 3, we are going to test the static line pressure. Connect the gauge at test cock 1 or 2 and open test cock 1 and wait. Record the static line pressure. Close test cock 1 and remove the gauge. To finalize the test, we will notify the customer that you will be turning the water back on To finalize the test, wipe down the backflow preventer and check for leaks. Once everything is good, notify the customer that you will be turning the water back on. This completes the test procedure for the double check valve assembly. Thank you.